Hey guys, welcome to another Corona tutorial, and today we are going to take a look at the correct render settings for various scenarios. So generally, depending on the scenario you are rendering, for example interior versus exterior or product shots, you will often want to render it as optimally as you can, so you will have to do some choice in regards to secondary GI solution. So what I mean by that is there are basically two primary secondary GI solvers that you should use depending on scenario, and those are path tracing and UHD cache. You can ignore HD cache, it's a legacy and it will be removed soon. So UHD cached is cached GI solution that will approximate secondary bounces of indirect illumination and interpolate between them, whereas primary path, secondary solver set to path tracing, it will use brute force for secondary bounces as well. So as a rule of thumb, for exteriors and product shots, basically for any kind of scenario where the scene is mostly lit by direct lighting and there are no areas that are completely hidden or where direct lighting doesn't reach, that's where you should use path tracing. And UHD cache is useful especially in the scenarios where there's a lot of indirectly lit surface that's lit by bounced light. So interior scenario, basically rooms or architectural visualization interior spaces are the most common example of that. So now let's go ahead and take a look at it from a practical standpoint. I have a scene, and you can see it's just a very simple room, and there's some background out here. And so this is what you would expect to your regular interior scenario to look like. So if I just launch the render, let's just give it a few seconds. Okay, now we can see how it looks like, and we can see we have exterior and some light from the exterior sunlight and skylight is coming into the into the interior, and there's quite a few surfaces like behind the sofa or the ceiling or basically this area on the wall right here that is lit exclusively by indirect light. So to visualize it, I'm going to disable primary solver, which will automatically disable the secondary solver as well. And I'm going to run the render. And as you can see, now the areas that would be completely indirectly lit are completely black. So you can see actually how much of the rendered area is would be lit indirectly by seeing it as black. So you can see this is the kind of case where indirect illumination set to UHD cache or the secondary solver set to UHD cache would be very beneficial, and you should always use UHD cache in such a scenario. If I switch to another camera, which is exterior, and render, now you can see, that we are in the exterior, but there's still a lot of space inside of the interior, especially the ceiling and such, that is missing indirect illumination that would be lit explicitly, or I mean exclusively, by indirect illumination. And also, as you can see, the environment light in Corona means either HDRI map in the environment slot, or in this case a physical sky in environment slot, is considered a direct light. So when you are outside in the exterior, then when you are deciding which light solver to use, then keep in mind that environment light is considered direct light. So it's not like you would have to use UHD cache for exterior to have better GI just because you don't have any corona lights in your scene. It's important to keep in mind, as I said, that the environment light is considered direct light as well. But in this particular scenario, it would still be more useful to use a UHD cache, even though we are in the exterior. There are still a lot of flat areas with not much of a geometric complexity that would be lit indirectly. And if you used brute force path tracing for that, it would probably be slower. So this is the kind of scenario where UHD cache would still pay off instead of the path tracing. Let's switch to another camera, which is Forest. This is kind of scenario. I'm gonna render it first, like here, where you are looking at mostly exterior, and the interior space or the flat surfaces do not cover much of our rendered surface. And this is already the case where setting a secondary solver to path tracing would probably be more beneficial. What I'm going to show you is I'm going to enable GI and keep secondary solver to path tracing. Let's also increase the resolution slightly. And let's take a look at this. Let's give it a while. And here, as you can see, the pre-visualization of the UHD cache shows you either the colored samples, that are the samples that are the UHD records where they gather, or it will show you green samples. And green samples do mean that those areas will be handed off to path tracing and will be path traced only. So as you can see, in such case, the most of the image would be path traced anyway, but during every ray intersection, it will still have to check for surrounding UHD records, so it will be still slower than if it was path tracing, because if both primary and secondary is path tracing, then Corona doesn't constantly have to check if there are any surrounding UHD records. So in such cases, path tracing is more beneficial because most of the rendered area will be path traced anyway, and it will be it won't have to look up any UHD cache records. Another scenario is here, which is inside out. Basically, our camera is still inside of the interior, but most of the rendered surface, if I just start a render, most of the rendered surface is actually the forest. And again, as you can see, the whole almost the whole UHD cache pre-calculation is shown as green. So when you are deciding whether to use UHD cache or path tracing for a secondary solver, you shouldn't care too much about where your camera is positioned, but rather what your camera is looking at. So it's not like when the camera is inside of the exterior, you should choose UHD cache, or when it's outside, you should use path tracing. It's more like what's the surface or what's the area you are rendering. If your camera is looking at the exterior area, you should more likely use path tracing, whereas even if your camera is outside of the building, if it's looking inside of the window into interior, UHD cache would be more appropriate solution. So this is it for the short explanation of the GI solvers, the secondary GI solvers, and in which case you should use which of them. And in the next part, we'll take a look at how to efficiently utilize Corona's sky portals. So see you then.